Our biggest challenge at this café project was the installation of the electric supply. You'll see that we've installed a three-phase electrical service, and the challenge wasn't actually around the installation, it was around the load that was available to allocate to the property. This kind of unit with 80 amp fuses in gives around 55 kVA for the building to operate with. In this case, they wanted the 55 kVA, but despite the equipment being suitable, the load available to be allocated to that equipment wasn't, and it's actually been put in at around 40 kVA. Now that meant that for the client they had an internal challenge in that the equipment that they're installing into the kitchens had to be of a certain specification to enable the operating current to be within the available load. When installing PV panels at a property of this size, it's classed as small generation. Now you can't just put the panels on and run the equipment. You have to speak to the network owner and you have to ask for their permission to run the PV panels in conjunction with their equipment. That involves a G98 application which is completed by your PV installer and sent off for approval by the network owner. When installing a three-phase supply, it's important to understand that the meter is different to that of a domestic property. So instead of having a single phase meter, we have a three-phase meter, and you can see coming out of the three fuses is the wiring that comes into the three-phase meter. So you've got wiring on each phase. If you were to take a fuse out, you isolate one phase of the three phases, for example. When speaking to an energy supplier to get a meter installed, there are a number of things that you're going to need to be aware of because they're going to ask you certain questions. So one, is it single phase or three phase? Well, in this case it's three phase. The second question will be, well, what is the capacity, what is the load that you're going to be running through this? In this case, 40 kVA. When installing a three-phase supply, it's important to understand that you need to request a three-phase meter. So when speaking to the energy supplier, you need to pass on the MPAN number, you have to confirm that the supply is three-phase, and they'll probably ask you questions around the load that you've got allocated to your property. Finally, a point of note, this is a three-phase meter box. You'll see that it is much bigger than the domestic meter box that you've got on side of your property at home. Right, when preparing for the electric installation, please ensure that the meter box is of the right specification, because if it's not, the work could be aborted, and then ultimately if it is, you go back into a queue for the work to be planned in again.